I'm sure you may be aware of how our progress goes, Miranda asked the teen. Not really, since I haven't been here until now, Lynn muttered. It's very simple. As terms of the confidentially will go, what we will talk in this room can remain a secret if you wish. I won't tell everyone, but you are free to make up use of that information as you will. The adolescents shrugged. Okay, that's fine. Now, for the most obvious question of the day. The doctor sighed intentionally, having went through the same progress several times now. So tell me, considering everything that has happened, how do you feel about it all? Lynn's face contorted into a frown. Like I said, crappy. My brother's afraid of me. I can't do any sports. All my friends left me. I got my butt kicked yesterday by an 11-year-old last Monday, and the silver lining, I deserved every single part of it. Would you say you have a troubling relationship with your siblings before any of the recent events occurred? It was rocky, sure, but it didn't get like all of this. I didn't want to talk to my older sisters much, but we do get along well. My younger sisters, on the other hand, two of them I kind of have a few issues with, but Lucy and Lana I get along with just fine. It's just disappointing how almost none of them are into sports though. I see. In relations with your older siblings, is there a particular reason why you don't associate with them? Lynn folded her arms. In all honesty, between Laurie's bossiness, Lenny's not so smartest, Luna's loud tunes, and Luann's lame jokes, they all made me irritated a lot. And since you might ask, what about Lola and Lisa? Well, one's a brat, and the other one thinks we are her personal guinea pigs. Miranda could somewhat agree with that, particularly since the elder siblings already expressed themselves. Why do you seem so close to Lana and Lucy? That's easy. Out of the twins, Lana and Lola are like opposites. Lola likes to be prim and proper, showing some class or whatever she goes by about it. But Lana, she's like me. She's not afraid of getting dirty. She's a bit tough considering that she likes to rustle gators. And the best part, she loves play fighting. She's probably the closest thing to a boy in the house besides myself and my brother. The doctor noted the sadness on Lynn's face upon mentioning Lincoln. She'd bring him up a minute, as she wanted to know where the relationship was between Lynn and Lucy. What about Lucy? What is she like? She is like an emo, plain and simple. Always dark, moody, outright depressed. She loves the dark so much that she always hides in the vents of the house writing poems. The athlete grew a snort. She's a spray painted the whole room black at one point, and it was around the time we were supposed to start saving energy to save some polar bear that made me really mad because it's not like she's the only one there. I'm practically in the room whenever she's off somewhere, and she keeps popping out of nowhere, scaring the crap out of us. And don't even get me started on the constant sighing. It gets annoying real fast. She's always like, sigh, sigh, sigh. It would kill her to smile more for a change. Lucy always goes on with how depressing her life is, but I hardly see it. She doesn't sound like the ideal roommate for someone like you. You're right, she's not. In fact, we have such a big fight at one point that I decided I couldn't sleep in the same room for her for a while. Lynn lied back on the chair, arms spread apart. That was when until I realized I actually missed having her as a roommate. During that time, I was staying with another one of my siblings. I saw her poetry book on the steps. I was just about to toss it elsewhere, but I decided to peek at it because I wanted to see what she got so depressed about. That book had some really deep stuff in there. I don't know much about poetry, but I could at least understand that it was mainly about when Lucy says she writes poems to express her pain. But it wasn't a figure of speech. She feels as if she had always forgotten and no one cares about her. I even saw a poem where she just writes hi to us and we all keep getting freaked out by it because we didn't even see her coming. I guess that's just a bad habit of all of us do. But since she's so quiet into a house like ours, she often goes unnoticed. At this point, I forget about why we're even fighting, wanted to make it up to her, but I couldn't. Miranda was taking notes on this. And what was your reasoning for start fighting? Lynn paused for a moment. After have repainted the room back to its normal color, I found her the spray painted she got on my some of my clothes that were too pretty much in gear. She said that I should get over with, and she's right, I should have. But that didn't mean she was allowed to paint our room black. It took forever to wash off all that paint from my stuff, and I didn't want to give her that satisfaction for making it like I was being a big baby over it. How did you two manage to reconcile? My brother helped us make up. He was right about everything that happened. Then me and Lucy missed each other, but we were too stubborn to admit it. I didn't even think Lucy had much of pride of going for her. But I guess we weren't really that different, you know? I do find it rather interesting and dynamic between the two of you. You seem to have better energetic and joy, while Lucy seems to be more reserved and depressed. I get you two still manage to keep it up, and even if it required outside source. The love you both have for each other is probably still strong to this day. Lynn then looked to the side. I guess so. Now moving on, what do you think of your brother? Lynn gave a deep frown. There was a lot of things that she could say that would describe Lincoln. Most of them being obnoxious to each other, a nerd, wimpy couch potato, lazy, comic geek, afraid to take a hit, doesn't exercise, afraid of his own sisters, living in a nightmare of a victim of circumstances, taken advantage of. Those were the last parts Lynn thought about when she pictured her brother the last time she saw him. She felt her eyes beginning to water as she reimagined Lincoln begging for mercy after seeing all of his sisters in the same room as him. He's, Lynn's voice was breaking. He's someone who didn't deserve any of this. Miranda frowned. She hated having to make someone revisit painful memories, but the best way to move on past them. She was going through talking about and letting them down flow. Do you have a close relationship with him? Lynn nodded. Ever since we were babies, I've always played with Lincoln. We both used to play fight with each other. I passed the ball around and play on the seesaw, swings at the park. We even shared a room until the twins. Both of them were born and I got stuck with Lucy. And when I started getting into, sports, I thought Lincoln might join as well since he was a boy. I thought all boys wanted to do is get into something sporty. But Lincoln just wasn't that kind of guy. As we got older, we started to hang less and less to the point we hardly hang out with each other. He's into comics, I'm into sports. I miss the times where we used to play around. So I would ask him. Sometimes he forces him to help me practice for something, even if I didn't needed to. It was my way of trying to get him to bring back those memories we were close. But he just got annoyed and would want to go back to being savvy. I even tried roughhousing with him just to see if he'll fight back. I remember the times we used to do that, and that would just irritate him, but I really want to try and fight back for another reason, which is I've seen people similar to Lincoln around in school a lot, and they're always the main targets for bullies. I want to see if he has any fights in him, and if he does, then it shouldn't be too hard to teach him how to defend himself. I chased off bullies for him before, but there was one that's actually different and tormenting him. 3 months ago, the school was running as normal and was typically what the reconciliated grades that took a load of newer students at the beginning of the semester. With a few new students that comes new targets for bullies. Naturally, with those with the biggest egos would pick on the new kids and nerds as their way of trying to establish some sort of pecking order. Lynn wasn't new to any of this. She herself had been subjected to the harsh treatment of bullying at one point. The Jacques had her fair share of boys and girls mocking for her affiliation of sports, even to new girls, mainly some fat kids who were larger than her height and girth tried to push her around. The boys refused to hit the girls, but with a few karate moves, Lynn taught them to show them respect, and she was a quick learner into the world of sports, and needed to say the males were embarrassed to be shown up by a member of the opposite gender. That was years ago by now. Lynn Jr., known as one of the best sports players in the school, as well as someone who shouldn't mess with her athletes, but partially her siblings. Quite a few of the bullies learned this the hard way when they targeted Lincoln or Lucy. Today, Lynn was sitting in the cafeteria munching on a sloppy Joe when she heard her brother scream for some reason. Turning her head, she saw him digging into a sandwich from his pants. The Jacques groaned awkwardly. That's just great. Someone picking on Link again? Polly asked. Unfortunately, not that I mind sticking up for Link and setting the record straight, but he gets tiresome after a while. I thought every bully got that message the last time a group of boys picked on him. Well, it might be that new bully in the 5th grade class. And who would that be, Margot? Lynn asked. There's this new kid that joined recently. She's Mexican, I think, wears a purple hoodie all the time. She goes by the name Ronnie Ann, and she's got quite the rep for being the toughest bully in her class. And I heard she's climbed on top of the food chains after the week she arrived. And now no one messes with her. Well, she clearly hasn't met me, if it is her. She won't be thinking so high and almighty once I'm done with her, Lynn boasted. Just don't get caught, 'cause last time you got suspended for it, Margot added. LeJacques chortled. Not my fault we were asking for it, but I still got the lesser sentence, and my parents took me out some ice cream afterwards. Just saying the principal isn't too fond of you right now, the lighter shade brunette girl persisted. As the day dragged on, Lynn went about her business like usual. Boring old history, boring old science, worst of all, boring, hateful math. The 13-year-old was practically ready to jump out of the building when the final bell rang, but one harsh sight told her that the important business to attend to. She was heading towards the front of the building. She saw a large group of students laughing at something. From the sound of it, some nerd was another victim of some bully. Normally she wouldn't have thought much about it. However, when she heard a large but could see the camera flashing, meaning people were taking pictures, her curiosity piqued. The jock made her way towards the group. Since she wasn't as tall as what would be considered as an average age, seeing as Luann was literally a head taller than her, but only by 1 year older. Lynn would lean on one of the students in the back to get a clear view, and the second she saw the mockery of the student body, Lynn felt her blood boil. Lincoln was pulling himself out of the pile of garbage he had been stuffed into his locker. He had looked more annoyed and embarrassed, which made the situation even so slightly aggravating, since it seemed Lincoln wasn't as spineless as Lynn thought. But from that crowd, that was when Lynn saw the girl Margot was talking about. The female in question was dark-skinned, looked about Lincoln's age, and had slightly prominent buck teeth, wore a purple hoodie with blue shorts, and currently was holding a smug grin at her handiwork. As soon as Lynn set her eyesights on the girl, she gave a glare at fears that she might have had hard skulls and crossbones in the place of the pupils. The athletic Dick half the minded to take right then and there, giving the students something good to laugh at. However, remembering friends' words, Lynn couldn't risk it. She was already on ice with the principal at this point. Even if her intentions were noble, fighting during school was not allowed regardless who started it. However, that didn't mean she'd be able to catch this bully after school. After a single thought ran through Lynn's mind, she formed a plan. Once she gets out of that door, that little bitch is going to eat bricks. As such as Lynn stood in front of the school waiting for her target to appear, she saw Lucy and the twins leave, her roommate questioning why she was still here. One of them looked at her face and told Lucy she needed to know before leaving the sports fanatic to her own thoughts. Patience wasn't Lynn's best assess, but it meant if getting the bully off of her siblings back, then she could afford to buy time. The 13-year-old was thinking of ways to get the message across to Hispanic punk who had the audacity to pull that shit on her brother. Sure, she may be 11, but an 11-year-old who thinks it's perfectly okay to sneak trash into someone's locker clearly needs to learn some manners. Obviously, she was going to leave bruises and maybe knock a few teeth loose. Perhaps a black eye would do as well. Maybe some pulled hair. Lynn shook her head. It may have been too much. The Jacques ducked out of sight, and when she saw Lincoln and Clyde leave, not wanting them to know any of her presence, Lynn could see that Lincoln still looked irritated, and she was at the piece of gum stuck into his hair, making her growl in relief. And to herself, her hair ripping was definitely on the list now. 2 minutes have left. Lynn had spotted the hoodie-wearing girl. Right as she was passing by her, Lynn wrapped her arm around the girl's neck, choking her and surprising the hell out of her. Dragging the struggling fifth grader to the side of the school, she hoisted the girl up and slammed her into the brick wall. The Hispanic girl coughed to even her breaths, was still trying to pry Lynn's hands from her sweater. "What is your deal? Do you have any idea who I am?" Lynn asked in a low voice. "Should I care?" the girl replied in a nonchalant tone, earning another smack against the wall. "I'm the older sister of a certain white-haired boy you thought it was a good idea to prank. You may not know it's here, new girl, but if anyone messes with my siblings, they get a first crazy Lynn Sanity can be." The jock spoke with the gritted teeth. "Lynn Sanity? What kind of name is— Ow, ow, ow!" The girl was cut off as Lynn grabbed her ponytail out of her hair and yanked it down. Her head now duck and stuck in the uncomfortable angle. "Careful, I might tear it off. What's your name? Ronnie Ann?" The girl winced in pain, losing her cool. "Well, Ronnie Ann, from what I've heard, you've made quite a name for yourself. Is it true you're the toughest girl in school?" "That's what everyone tells me," Ronnie Ann glared. "Well, guess what? You aren't. Maybe in your class, but in comparison to me, you're just another bully who needs to be taught a lesson." Lynn started to chuckle. "Funny, though, after all the bullies I have chased away from Lincoln, you're the first who's a girl. So why the hell are you pretty much picking on my brother?" Ronnie Ann opened her mouth, but Lynn silenced her for a moment. "Oh, and I don't like your answer? You can say goodbye to those buck teeth of yours. And be quick about it, because I don't like being around trash like you." The 11-year-old glared at Lynn for a few moments, before losing her defiant look. Whatever insults she would have spoke died in her mouth in that very fret. She knew that she could take on the rest of the class, but she had her doubts of the ability to handle the 13-year-old with the knack of sports, especially since that person was very protective of her siblings. She knew the real reason why she kept picking on Lincoln, but she was quite embarrassed to talk about it. Her cheeks reddened a bit just thinking about the boy. Lynn shifted her weight a bit and removed her hand from the girl's ponytail, cocking her fist back. "Time's up, punk," was all she said before launching the first punch. Ronalda's eyes went wide as she held up her hands to defend her face. I like your brother, okay?" The Hispanic girl never fought the impact of the teeth. It stopped from the inch from her face. Lynn stood there, equally baffled. "You what?" "I said I like Lincoln, okay? I've had a crush on him for a while, but didn't know how to approach him, so I thought maybe pranking him would get a way to notice me. I even left notes on the pranks so he knew who it was. It seemed to work, since he wanted to meet me at his house at 3:30. Lynn was rather conflicted. It didn't make any sense. From what she knew, boys and girls didn't bully each other to show signs of affection. Granted, he did roughhouse with Lincoln frequently, but just because they were siblings, and she knew that he could handle it. But for showing love for someone like that who's a complete stranger, she was bullshit on this farce. That's ridiculous, and if you really did like him, why the hell did you stuff trash in his locker? My other pranks didn't seem to work, so I did something a bit more drastic." Rhonda smiled sheepishly. Lynn wasn't too happy with this answer. "Really? And who told you that?" "That is what my brother said, and he got his girlfriend Lori." Lynn blinked twice. She thought Lori was joking when she described how she and Bobby got together. Guess that tale was entirely made up. Looking over at Ronnie Ann, Lynn could see that the embarrassment at the preteen's face as well as hesitation. She really ought to pound her face from the embarrassing Lincoln the way he did, but it seemed that the fifth grader was just desperate for attention of a boy she liked, even though her reasoning was questionable. While Lynn didn't have to agree with Ronanda's way of grabbing her brother's focus, she was also giving a follow advice given to her from Bobby. Lynn made a note to ask Lori at some point questions when she got home. Giving a sigh, Lynn released Ronnie Ann. "So you really like my brother?" Ronnie Ann nodded. "Well, lucky for you, I don't carve your face into that pavement, since you need to look out for him. But if I catch you pranking him again, you're not going to like the outcome." To that enforced the point, Lynn put a fist to her own eye, implying the bruise that it would give. And with that said, the Jacques left the Hispanic girl to collect herself as she walked home. "So, what occurred after that?" Miranda asked. "I got home shortly after Lincoln did, and I saw him making a poor attempt to hide gum in his hair, but didn't say anything unless openly came out and said it. Turns out I told Lisa, so when I told everyone else, because at that point, they would have found out eventually, I had to put up with the rest to act like I didn't even know what was going on, even dragging some boy off the street to act his potential bully. I apologized to the kid and gave him $5 for putting up the act. After everything hounded for the information out of him, Lincoln finally said it was a girl. I acted happy at that moment, but wasn't entirely certain about the whole situation, given that I knew Lori told him. And I even quote, when a girl picks on you, whatever you miss is one thing, she acted happy, and it's pretty much the moment she entirely was certain about the whole thing she knew, but of course it means she likes you." Of course I sighed and awkwardly because I knew where Ronnie Ann was really getting that crap from. Long story short, we ended up convincing Lincoln to kiss her, to which he did and got punched in the face. Ronnie Ann ran off in a hurry right afterwards, either from shock of what she did or just she thought I might kill her. The teen then rubbed her nose. Lynn shifted a bit on the couch into a more relaxed position. The next day before school, she was practically scared I was going to knock her head off. But instead, I asked her why I punched him, and she just acted on impulse because she didn't expect a kiss. I was surprised Lincoln actually went for it. Ironically, Ronnie Ann was really able to kick my butt. Considering your affiliations for sports of how angry you seemed at the time, I find it quite hard to believe that, the doctor stated. Well, to be fair, she was only be able to because I was depressed and I felt like I deserved the ass kicking. If I wasn't, then I would have taken her on, but that doesn't matter. No matter how many times I defended Lincoln, I still failed to protect him. The only bully that was actually able to wound him was me, Lynn sniffled. During that stupid fight, the only thing I cared about was hurting him as much as possible. I'm the reason why he has a broken arm right now. Anytime we played around, I never went too hard on him. Sometimes I got a little ahead of myself, but didn't realize in a broken bones. I wanted to apologize to my little brother so bad that it hurts seeing him the way he was when I visited him, getting my mouth checked. Anytime I look at him now, I can't help but stare at the damaged arm, knowing that I did this to him, and now he'll see me as nothing but someone who's bullied him for the last 4 years. Hot tears began to run down Lynn's cheeks. At first, I thought he hated me after he smacked me with his food tray during the first visit. Maybe that wouldn't be the cause because he might refuse to speak with me. But if he's afraid of me now, he can't even look at me without thinking I'm going to hurt him or worse. Lynn then sat up and grabbed a few tissues, her nose beginning to run. After cleaning her sinuses, she balled the used tissue papers up and tossed them into the waste bin, the tissues landing perfectly. I'm no better than those idiots who picked on my brother. I probably just forced him to play with me because I knew he was weak and was an easy target. All of our fights were pity ones, one-sided, but I was only stronger than him. Lincoln, no doubts, I just want to play around with him, just to boast my own ego. Miranda jotted all of this down. When you said ego, would you say that you're a bit boastful? That would be an understatement. I have gloated in front of my siblings doing every victory dance over a board game. Of all things, that gives you a picture. And trust me when I say this, it was not a good weekend for me, Lynn grimaced, recalling her competitive nature, towards being thrown in her overdrive, losing to one such game. Technically, all of us have done victory dances at one point or another over something small like first up the stairs, but thanks to my siblings, I've learned to dial it back. I've also got some superstitions issues, mainly because Lucy is my roommate and always claims when she talks to her ghosts or her great grandmother. Still but however, being around her just makes me think doing certain things is good luck. But now that I think of it, it's just stupid, you know? I still had to pee or poop during several games, but we still managed to win. And trust me, it's not easy having to keep a turd in for hours. And it's not that bad right now, but it could be a whole lot worse. I might have done something idiotic and blame Lincoln as bad luck over for a sports game for all I know. But you have it under control right now, right? Lynn nodded. Now I recall you said earlier about you being a bully. You told me you fought off other bullies to protect your brother and sisters. Now, before you tell me the story of how you met Ronnie Ann, were you only playing with them only to relieve past memories, but also to get him to fight back, correct? Yes, but I don't think it's ever worked. Possibly, but you are in the right step in teaching your brother how to stand up for himself. Bullies will often strike at any opportunity. While your actions might have mirrored to a T, you never meant any ill will words towards Lincoln. Out of all the times you've caught him by surprise, does it seem like he's gotten better at expecting when you whistle at him or toss an object at him? Lynn lied there for a second thought. She searched her mind for an answer. I guess he's gotten better at dodging, not so much as using force like I would want him to. It's still a step in the right direction. While it's important to us to teach younger siblings how to defend themselves, it's not a good idea to enforce the idea upon them at the moment's notice, nor force to participate if they are not in the mood. What would you do is ask Lincoln if he wants to know how to defend himself. While I am certain there may be a time to come when he will have to fight his own battles, but it is also important to take things nice and slow, especially if no one is in a real intimate danger. On that note, you aren't really a bully, Lynn. Like your sisters, you just let yourself get caught up in the wave of danger. You still have your brother and want what's best for him, but you need to help him on his pace, not yours. It's much like trying to drive a tractor trailer and you just learn to drive the car. In the meantime, you can also help your sister Luann. I've noticed you have some rather vexed, if I'm assuming she told you about her bullying problem. Lynn nodded. Absorbing the doctor's advice, she wasn't the one to take things slow, but for Lincoln's sake, she'd do whatever it takes to get better her relationship with her brother. She's done a lot to help her in the past, even if it was just for his own benefits. But she did get a good laugh at the time when she bunked with him and dressed as an emo just to try to get her to leave. All it did was to remind her of Lucy. During the whole football fiasco, she enjoyed playing the sport for him as well. Given his laziness, she knew Lincoln wouldn't last a minute out there. Lynn felt bad about the situation for weeks, especially since she got too cocky and just had her ankle sprained. But as a result, while Lincoln was taking responsibility for his actions, he still didn't know much about football, ended up scoring for the wrong team, and got jumped by the Roosters afterwards. To ensure Lincoln that wasn't harassed at school about it, she pretty much gave the Roosters a stern warning to leave the boy alone unless they felt they wanted her attention. While it was irritated to her that she couldn't quite fix Luann's past bullying problem, it did make sense to help her solve any future bully problems. Thinking about her brother, Lynn remembered that Dr. Lopez spoke with him before talking to her. She had to know what was going on with them, but it was like killing her inside about the nightmares were getting worse, especially since she knew herself she was involved in them. Is Lincoln doing okay? Did you manage to help him out? 10 seconds had passed in silence, Lynn unconsciously holding between her breaths, as the psychologist looked over her votes. Well, I have had a good idea of how far his fears are, but I believe it's not too late to change his mind. The athlete grew a small sigh. I guess that's just as good as it's gonna get. So is there anything else that you have in mind, Lynn? At the moment, no, but thanks for asking me, Dr. Lopez. Lynn then got up from their chair and walked to the door. Before I forget, could you ask the twins to come in? Lynn paused. Wait, one or both? I would like to speak with them together.